Hi family, I hope you're doing well. Just before Father Moon died on September 3rd, 2012, he said that when we transcend the history of the fall and return to the original Garden of Eden, following only God, we can then build the kingdom of heaven. He also said that we can restore our nations by guiding our communities and tribes with this standard. True Mother speaks about this moment after offering his final prayer. Breathing with some difficulty for a moment, he squeezed my hand tightly, saying, "Mother, thank you. Mother, please take care of everything. I'm so sorry and I'm truly grateful," he said, struggling to get the words out. Again and again he said the same words. I held his hand more and more firmly, and with warm words and loving eyes, holding back the tears, I reassured him that everything would be all right. Don't worry about anything. The title of today's message is True Love is a Couple That Lives for the Sake of Others. After Father Moon ascended, True Mother offered a 3-year period of devotion. Regardless of the weather, she dedicated her time every day to visit his tomb and pray. She was often advised to stay inside if the weather was too harsh or the pathway too slippery, but she never relented. Whether there was a rainstorm or a snowstorm or a scorching hot day, she always climbed the mountain to pray. There are countless reasons and excuses to stay inside. Regardless, after his passing, I departed my room each day at dawn for prayer at my husband's tomb, and upon returning, I prepared his breakfast and dinner. Can you imagine this kind of devotion? When so many around the world were wondering what to do, and so many were shamefully doubting her, our True Mother was leading the way with steadfast devotion. She was comforting God. She was comforting True Father. And while she was praying for us all, who was comforting her? Nature was her friend. Listen. Korean bonsai pines lined the pathway to the Bonhyangwon, and underneath them, clusters of wildflowers bloomed in the spring. During the winter, wildflowers disappear, but in the spring they bloom profusely, as if competing with each other. I would stop on my way up the steep incline to take a closer look at the grasses and flowers. They displayed their colors beautifully in the spring's bright morning sun, whether I was there to admire them or not. I would become intoxicated with their beauty, caressing the wildflowers before reassuming my ascent up the path. The walk was difficult, but my heart would be as serene as the flowers. When I would reach my husband's tomb, I would carefully check to see whether any weeds had sprouted among the blades of grass or whether animals had left any traces. The lawn on the grave became greener and greener as time went by. Sitting alone in front of his tomb, I would pray for everyone in the world to be as beautiful as wildflowers, to have minds as strong as pine trees, and to always live prosperous lives as green as a summer lawn. On my way down, I would say farewell to the flowers and the pine trees. My friends of the natural world, I will meet you again tomorrow. If you ever have a chance to visit Father's tomb, reflect upon the incredible heart and tearful prayers that our True Mother invested there. It is beautiful. Also, let us embrace nature the way True Mother does. In these words, she expresses not only the beauty of nature, but also gratitude. For it was the pine trees and the wildflowers who comforted our True Mother when we could not. Mother was doing all of this while thinking of her husband. As I walked along the path up the hill to the Bonyangwon and back, he and I shared many heart-to-heart conversations. My husband's thoughts became my thoughts, and my thoughts became his. There is no one more devoted to our true father than our true mother. There is no one who loves him more, no one who knows him more intimately, and no one who has sacrificed more to support him. Furthermore, there is no man who understands our true mother more than true father. No one loves her more or has been more devoted to her than true father. Their power comes from God, but it is secured in their relationship with each other as the most beautiful couple in the world. The couple most dedicated to peace in human history, and they have been leading the way for us all. It's true that there are many great peace leaders throughout history. Father was once asked who was his favorite American from the 20th century. He answered, Dr. Martin Luther King. Another famous peace leader of the 20th century was Nelson Mandela. And they were both he and Dr. King, inspired by the great Mahatma Gandhi of India. Heaven raised these men and women like Mother Teresa and so many others to change the world and lead us to peace. It's mind-boggling what one person can do, how one person can have such an incredible impact across the globe, how one person can change the course of history. There are amazing people like this. However, Father and Mother Moon are on a totally different level. First of all, when you think of the saints and sages of human history, how many of them served as a couple? Heavenly Parent brought these two together for a great mission, and they suffered greatly. But they have turned every ounce of that suffering into a stronger motivation. They forgive, and they lead others to forgive. They love and lead others to love. And they unite and lead others to unite. Mother goes on. After this work is done, my husband would always say, and so would I. After this work is finished, and we have a bit of free time, we'll be able to take a break. Over our years of ministry, one would think that there would have been brief moments to relax after completing an urgent task. But for us, free time never materialized. My husband was born with a strong physique, and had he taken better care of his health, he would have had more time to work for a better world. But he too followed God's will with unflinching devotion, and this damaged his health, ultimately to the point of no return. His daily schedule itself was grueling. Every morning he would rise at 3 a.m., exercise, pray, and study. By 5 a.m., he was already working, teaching, and leading meetings, but never still. Father was constantly traveling, crossing multiple time zones, developing an unparalleled worldwide movement. And who was there right next to him? That's right, True Mother. So why was Reverend Moon so misunderstood? It's natural to want to avoid bad people, but sometimes good people are falsely accused. Change makers are rarely welcomed, right? The greater the change maker, the greater the change. The greater the change, the greater the threat to those who don't want to change. There is, however, one thing that all bad people have in common, and that is selfishness. They do what they do to serve themselves. But is there anyone who thinks that Father and Mother Moon have acted selfishly in their lives? Honestly, after paying close attention to their lives, I can think of no more ridiculous an idea that Father and Mother Moon have lived their lives selfishly. Everything they do is for the sake of others. And that is their magic. In this book, True Mother talks about how hard Father worked into his 70s, 80s, even 90s, pushing himself beyond what was physically possible. Finally, in 2012, he caught a chest cold that was deeply alarming. Even then, he refused to go to hospital, saying that he would go after the work was done. Finally, they did get him to hospital, but as soon as the doctors finished their initial tests, he said, "I still have a lot of work to do. I can't just sit here in hospital," he said, scolding the people who advised him to stay. There was no choice but to discharge him. That was August 12, 2012. We arrived home, and all of a sudden he said, "I want to have breakfast sitting opposite you, Oma." The members who heard this weren't sure if they heard him right, because I always sat next to my husband during meals, not facing him. And then, when the food was served, my husband seemed uninterested in eating. He just gazed at me as if he were trying to engrave my face in his heart. I smiled and placed a spoon in his hand and something from the side dishes on his plate. "These vegetables are delicious, so take your time to eat," I said. Father was just gazing at Mother, taking in that moment. Apparently, such an event had never taken place. That's how busy Father and Mother have been their entire lives for our sake. You know, Mother talked about this precious moment. I've heard Mother say that after the meal, Father put his head on Mother's lap like a child seeking his mother's comfort. These were their final precious moments on earth together. You know, we often look at true parents as religious leaders or great peacemakers. But the best explanation I've ever heard about who they really are was from someone who just recently met True Mother. And I want to tell you the story. There's a good friend of mine from Los Angeles. He's a Christian pastor. And last year, I had the opportunity to take him on a private tour of Belvedere and East Garden Museum in New York. Guided by our East Garden staff, the tour took about 3 hours. He hadn't studied the divine principle at that point. He'd only seen True Mother speak, and he had met many of our members, and he was hugely impressed by our culture. But on this day, as we took the tour of Belvedere, I was actually far more impressed by him and his insights. He shared something that I've never really heard before, even from our own members. First of all, you have to imagine the scene. A 3-hour tour through every single room of the main house at Belvedere. Each time we entered a new room, we would hear about the extraordinary, remarkable events that took place in that room. We heard the story of where True Father was sitting when he first announced that he would meet Kim Il-sung in North Korea. We heard the story about the time when the security guards received a phone call from the FBI, warning that Reverend Moon should not leave the estate, as there had been multiple death threats, including the time when police caught a man driving his car upstate with a trunkload full of bombs to attack the Moon family at their residence. Or about the time when True Father was wrongfully imprisoned in Danbury, and where he was sitting in the house, and what each of the true children were doing, coming up one after the other to bow to their father and mother and hug them, and where Father was standing just before he had to drive away to Danbury. 3 hours of these incredible stories of how Father and Mother Moon built a worldwide movement in the face of adversity from all sides. Brothers and sisters, do you like movies? Do you like action movies, spy movies, hero movies? Honestly, when you picture the story of true parents' life, even just a few years of their life, it's far more exhilarating than the best Hollywood movies. So, as we moved from room to room, looking at the pictures of true parents, true family, and the pictures of all of these historical events, I was wondering, what is my friend thinking? He didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, humbly. He stood there standing humbly next to me, listening carefully, quietly. I really wondered, what was he thinking? This was his first time. Finally, after 3 hours, when the tour was coming to an end, he leaned into me and whispered in my ear. He said, "I get it. I get it." I looked to him and asked, "What do you mean?" He said, "I get it. I've been listening to all these stories and observing all this history. But what I hear in every story and what I see in every photograph is father and mother side by side. It's true that when you hear the story of how they built this movement, it is totally impressive. But what is even more impressive is the fact that they could stay together through everything they have been through. I have never seen or ever heard of such a couple before. How is it possible that they stay together through all of that struggle and suffering? When your family is attacked, when your work is constantly misjudged, it's hard just to run a local church community and stay grounded in your marriage, let alone do what they have done. So yeah, I get it. The only way such a couple could withstand all of that is if they truly, truly love one another. I was shocked. I was shocked by what he said. It was so simple and so profound. Through all the stories he heard, what he saw and what he heard was their love for one another. There is no proof greater than that. So the next day at Sunday service, I asked my friend to share his insight with our Belvedere family members. That day was our annual family festival where we gather like over 1,000 members from around the area to celebrate the Day of All True Things outside on the beautiful green lawn of Belvedere. I invited him up to stage to share his testimony, which he shared, and then he concluded it this way. And he hadn't said this the day before. He concluded it this way. The only way for this couple to exist and to survive is if they are a true love couple. This is a couple who truly love one another and who truly live for the sake of the world. Surely, from such a true love couple as this is what he said. He said, surely from such a true love couple as this, a true love lineage must be born. That's what he said. He said, when I see them, and when I see the members of the Family Federation, I feel like I am experiencing what I always imagined heaven to be like. I feel like I am in heaven. That's what he said. Brothers and sisters, a true love lineage has been born, and we are connected to that lineage of true love through the blessing, specifically because true parents have lived for our sake. To experience the full nature of this love, we must also multiply what we have been given. We know this. The fall was the birth of selfishness. Just like True Father said in his final prayer, we must transcend the history of the fall and guide our communities and tribes toward the heavenly garden. People are looking for this love. People are longing for this love. The only thing we should be afraid of is keeping it to ourselves. It's true that some are afraid of change, but don't be disheartened. A great transformation is taking place, and we are a part of it. To have true love in a couple, we have to live for the sake of each other in our couple. But it is only true love if that love is connected to the benefit of others also. A true love, living for the sake of others, despite the challenges, is one that lives for the sake of others. Do you follow? So let us inherit and multiply this love so that we may hold our heads up high as we return to the heavenly garden. God bless you, brothers and sisters. God bless you.